Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition is Bart the Beanstalk, brought to us by Acclaim. Bart the Beanstalk is the fourth Simpsons-related game on the Nintendo Game Boy, following Krusty's Funhouse, as well as Bart vs. the Juggernauts. Bart and the Beanstalk is a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk, as to be expected, with Bart being Jack and Homer being the giant. The game is broken up into multiple levels, where most of which you have to collect a certain number of coins in order to complete the stage. But other than that, it's a pretty typical action platformer, and the controls overall are better than a lot of the other Simpsons games of the era. So here we go with Bart and the Beanstalk for the Nintendo Game Boy. When we begin the game, we get a little bit of a story before jumping into the first level. As the first level begins, you can see that we get to play as Bart Simpson as Jack at the bottom of the beanstalk, and we have to start climbing our way up. Along the way, you have to collect 40 coins in order to then complete the stage, or else you'll have to go back and find more coins that you may have missed. While you have to collect a certain number, there's usually more than that number in the level, so you don't have to grab every single coin, though grabbing extras will end up getting you extra points. The first level is honestly the most convoluted as far as a lot of the path goes and making sure that you're able to get all of the coins. Most of the levels you can just kind of go through and you'll find enough along your journey. Hit detection in the game is at best, as well as platforming can be a bit sluggish, especially when it comes to also attacking enemies. Bart has an infinite number of shots using his slingshot in order to take out most enemies, including bosses, but it fires out really slow. It's one of those things you have to kind of get used to when you play the game, of just the timing of being able to attack and then quickly maneuver Bart out of the way of oncoming attacks from enemies, which is usually only a problem during boss fights. Be careful when climbing up or jumping off of ledges in the game. The screen doesn't scroll as fast as Bart moves, and because of this, if you go too far off screen, it does count as a death, so you can't jump off of a higher platform and go far down. You'll end up losing a life that way. Most enemies only take 2 hits in order to defeat them. Annoying ones like the bees that we've been dealing with have to be destroyed using dynamite, and there's a few bits of dynamite scattered throughout the levels, but since they don't do a ton of damage, a lot of times I just kind of jump past them or jump through them even. Here I'm using these vines to make sure I grab plenty of extra coins before heading back up and continuing bouncing my way up the beanstalk. You can kinda tell which leaves you can bounce on. They look slightly different than other ones that you just kinda pass right through, so you have to kinda get used to that. It's a bit hard to see, especially when it was on the original Game Boy screen, where it was really difficult to tell what you were able to bounce off of and what you weren't. You can see at the bottom of the screen the amount of dynamite we have, the lives we have, as well as the amount of coins that we still need to collect, our score, and then the big bar in the center is the health that we have left. As we continue up, we're going to jump over here just for a second to bounce off this leaf and grab these coins. It's a couple of ways you can kind of travel through some levels in the game, but it's still pretty straightforward for the most part. Here we're nearing the top of the beanstalk here, or at least to the next level. Climbing up, grabbing the last couple of coins, and now head to the right where our first boss is encountered, which is this weird bug. Basically, all it does is go left and right repeatedly. That's all it's able to do. The hard part is timing it so that you're able to attack it using the slingshot and then be able to jump over it to avoid taking damage. The timing takes a bit because of how slow the slingshot ends up firing, but still a pretty easy boss. The boss that we have to battle after this in level 2 is pretty much the same, just with a few minor changes. Level number 2 has us at the top of the beanstalk traveling inside of the giant's castle. Here we have to get 30 coins as well as do a lot of platforming between clouds. You have a few different types of clouds, ones that are moving platforms, ones that are stationary, and ones that will break apart when you end up landing on them. Either you can land on them and then have to quickly jump off and they'll break, or you'll bounce off of them like these and be able to continue going, but you have to be careful that you end up getting away so you don't fall into the pit. After a few seconds, one of those clouds does end up respawning, so if you had to bounce back to a previous platform, just have to wait a few moments for the cloud to come back. While you do have to collect the 30 coins in the level, it's pretty much easy to grab them as you're just traveling over to the right. You'll get plenty of coins and probably have more than you need before you even get near the end of the level. Now that we have all the coins, we just have to finish the platforming segments here in the level. Pretty simple stuff, and any platforming expert will probably not have too much trouble. The giant missiles or arrows that get fired out can be a bit of a pain to dodge, but still won't do too much to you. At the end, we have to battle this cloud, which looks like Mr. Burns. It throws out a big beam of lightning down below it, and then goes back and forth left and right, and then returns to the same spot. It repeats this cycle a couple of times before eventually just starting to slowly float overhead, shooting down some lightning at you. When it does this, of course, it's a little bit more of a pain to dodge, but you still have a decent amount of opportunity to get past the lightning before you end up getting hit by him. He'll then go right back into the same pattern he was doing before, staying on one side, then going back and forth left and right, returning to that spot, and doing this until eventually going back to just doing the straight up regular lightning attacks overhead. After he's taken down though, we're moving inside of the castle in the next level of the game. After the cutscene's finished, we're now inside of the giant's castle. As to be expected, everything's quite large and Bart's pretty small traveling. There are some little tacks that are on the ground, candles that light and relight after going out for just a moment for us to pass them, and some mice that are now the main enemy that we deal with. Just like before, we do have to collect 40 coins in order to complete the stage, but it's pretty easy to do so. There's not a lot of different paths that you'll be able to take, but you may have to do a little bit of backtracking as far as dropping down a ledge and then returning in order to get to certain coins that you couldn't just on your normal first pass by. After heading all the way left, we're going to drop on down here to the right and pick up the coins on this side of the area before then heading back up the candle platforms that we took just a few moments ago and get back and continue on through this stage. If you're wondering, I'm taking damage on the mousetrap because even though it doesn't end up springing to hurt you, it still ends up hitting you when you get near it. I guess it's spiky at the end or whatever, so thus that justifies it hurting you, but it's a little bit hard to dodge them just because of the hit detection and some of the slow jumping that Bart ends up having. Now that we've gotten all those coins though, we're going to head up this time, pick up some more coins, and spring our way over here to the right side, using the mouse traps in order to get over. Here we have another series of the candle platforms, and we pick up the last couple of coins that we need, and now we just gotta finish up the stage by continuing over to the right. You get all your health back in between the levels, so a lot of times you really don't have to watch out too much as far as protecting your health. There's only a couple of enemies that really end up damaging you, and some of the levels, like this one, don't even have a boss at the end of it. During this stage, we're in a giant bowl of hot soup. What you have to do is jump between the crackers, I guess, and every time you grab on one, some of them end up falling down into the hot soup. And if you land in the soup itself, you end up dying. The hit detection of being able to get to the lower level crackers or platforms can sometimes be really difficult to do. Sometimes if you're not careful, the game will act like you were just still on the top level and end up causing you to die because of it. Pretty simple level, but a bit frustrating because of that. The next level is very similar to the one we just did a few moments ago inside of the Giant's Castle. Here though, you have to stay out of the light. Anytime you're in the light, which you can see is kind of represented by the different colored background, you'll start flashing. The flashing will increase in speed until eventually the Giant will end up killing Bart. Basically, just his finger shows up and taps Bart in the head, but it's a loss of a life because of that. You still have to collect a certain number of coins, but you also have to collect 3 other items. The bag of gold, which we grabbed all the way on the far left side, and then you have to grab the harp, as well as the golden goose. Thankfully, they're in pretty easy to find locations. Only the harp will really potentially be missed if you miss the bag of gold by not going all the way to the left at the beginning. The amount of coins that you need is pretty much irrelevant. You'll be able to get plenty of coins throughout most of this level. I never have had an issue making sure that I had enough of them. You also get a lot of health back. In fact, I think near full health for collecting the special items I mentioned. Drop down here and head over to the left in order to find the harp, which is, I guess, Lisa, or at least the head of Lisa is on it, and then head to the right now on the lower set of platforms. You have to make a few platforming jumps here. Some of the platforms will break when you land on them. You have the annoying bugs going around as well, but you just kind of keep persevering, and it's pretty easy to get through. At the end of this entire segment is the golden goose. Grab it, and as long as you have all the other items that we needed to grab, you're able to finish up the stage by just going to the right. The next level has us escaping the castle, and the Giant's chasing us. Basically, if the screen goes too far over and you end up hitting the right side of the screen, it's an instant death as the Giant catches you. The thing is, the screen scrolls very awkwardly, and it takes a bit to get used to, and some of the jumps you really have to wait out until you have enough time in order to make it over them. There's plenty of lightning bolts that are going to try to strike at you, but your biggest threat is definitely hitting the right side of the screen for the Giant to grab you, or falling straight down to the ground itself. As soon as you touch the right side though, it instantly ends up freezing you, so you may hit that side as you're doing a jump, and you'll just fall to the ground and end up losing a life that way, so just make sure you don't touch the right side of the screen during this level. One other annoyance is on moving platforms, the moving cloud platforms. You don't automatically move with them. You have to keep Bart moving in the direction that it's moving in order to stay on it. If you jump on those platforms and stop moving, it'll just go away from you and you'll end up falling. This and the final level of the game, even though there are plenty of coins scattered throughout, you don't have to collect any of them in order to complete the level, thankfully. Even though it probably still would be pretty easy to do so since there's so many of them grouped together in areas that you're going to be platforming to and from anyway. These couple of jumps at the end can be a bit difficult if you try to rush them like I do, where I'm just trying to get to the safe platform, next safe one easily. But some of them, like this one, you're going to need to wait a few seconds and then wait again here a few seconds before making it over. If you don't time it right, the cloud may spawn a bit early, and because of that you may not be able to reach the jump, or even if you're about to be able to reach the jump, you may still clip that right wall. Either way, when the level finishes up, we move right into the next stage, which has Bart parachuting down. This is a mechanic that we saw actually during Bart vs. the Juggernauts, and it's pretty much identical here. You can hit up and down while you're parachuting downwards in order to either slow up or speed up. The most annoying part of this whole thing is the birds that you have to deal with do a lot of damage. For some reason, they're probably the most damaging enemy I think in the entire game. Just like in the previous level though, if you touch the screen instead of the right side, the top of the screen this time, you end up dying and have to restart the area. There's plenty of spikes along the way as well, and the worst part, and the only piece that's a little bit of a pain, is because you can't really see sometimes the platforms that are coming up below you. You may end up getting stuck on a platform and can't get fast enough to one of the gaps to continue falling downwards. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward and easy level, and in fact, this is the last level of the game. There's not even a final boss when you end up completing this level. When you make it to the bottom of the beanstalk, just head to the left a little bit where the axe is located. It'll instantly refill all your health, even though this is the end of the game, and then you can enjoy the ending to Bart and the Beanstalk. So there you have it, Bart and the Beanstalk for the Nintendo Game Boy. A bit of a shorter experience than some of the other Simpsons games on the Game Boy, but honestly, probably the best playing overall. It isn't great by any means, but just as a whole, the core gameplay, even the music, is more tolerable than other Simpsons games on the Game Boy. After the credits though, it goes right back into the first level, so you can start the game all over again if you want to. But with that, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.